Gen X grew up on late-night warnings.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Scared, straight.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
And were inspired by movies that defined a generation.
We were all pretty bizarre. Some of us are just better at hiding it, that's all.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
I feel the need for speed.
We found our attitude in comedy.
I'm Gumby, damn it.
You see that sign?
No shirt, no shoes,
No dice!
Right. Learn it. Know it. Live it.
And our identity in pop culture.
I want my MTV!
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV!
Who you talking about, Willis?
Keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
This is Gen X Men with Bill Rowland and Gary Dollarhide.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
You could miss it. Welcome in. Episode number 12. Bill Rowland here, Gary Dollarhide there, up in chilly Maine. Although
a little bit warmer here today.
I was going to say, it says underneath warmer here, so that's a good thing.
Yep, it's probably 32 degrees, and we're getting a little bit of snow melt. So
yeah, you better get the sunglasses and the oil out. That's a
some people
balmy day.
will do that.
Yeah.
You'll see people in shorts today.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Again, my cousin's from up there. He very rarely will be in pants around his house, even running around outside. I mean, when he goes to work, he obviously has slacks on. Otherwise, it's shorts and usually flip-flops or slides.
I'm currently in shorts myself.
Yeah, I don't know how he does. I don't know how he does it.
4 degrees in the house. So
yeah, well, there's that. It's 66 here. We don't keep the heat up that high. That's why you got to wear the big fuzzy slippers here. Anyway, episode number 12. Welcome, and we appreciate everybody hanging out with us. We got a good one today, and we might as well just jump right into it, Gary. It was, and I didn't realize until they were talking about it. 45 years ago this week, I was watching Monday Night Football this past Monday, obviously, because Monday Night Football, and I realized, oh, okay, kind of put it all together. I saw some people on X talking about it. 45 years ago, John Lennon of the Beatles, and I don't know that the Beatles are necessarily Gen X. I think a lot of Gen X people love a lot of people, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, everybody kind of loves the Beatles. They weren't ours. We weren't growing up as the teeny boppers. But I think we had an appreciation for them as you went further on in life. I don't remember necessarily being upset finding out at 9 years old that John Lennon had died. I know it made an impact on the older people around me. But 45 years ago on Monday Night Football, they had to announce John Lennon's death of being shot outside his apartment building in New York City. And it got me to thinking, like, how would that happen today? Like, do you want to go into that discussion? Or do you want to hear the audio from Monday Night Football first?
Well, let's play the audio. So maybe some people, because look, I was 9. I can tell you, I wasn't watching the game. Don't remember it. So, let's run the audio and put it in context so people understand.
Yeah, to give you an idea, it was Monday night. It was New England and I think Miami were playing in the game. There's less than 10 seconds to go. There's 3 seconds on the clock when they come back from break. And we'll talk about it after the clip about how they found out about it, the announcers, and what they said. But here's what it sounded like. Let me play it for you.
John Smith is on the line, and I don't care what's on the line, Howard. You have got to say what we know in the booth.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival. Hard to go back to the game after that news flash, which in duty pound we had to take. Frank?
Indeed it is. John Smith.
So there you go. 3 seconds to go in the game. John Smith, as they talked about, out there getting ready to try to kick the game-winning field goal for the Patriots as they're taking on the Dolphins. And they break in with this. That's Frank Gifford, Howard Cosell that you heard talking about it. Cosell was the one that gave the announcement. Gifford's the other guy. If you don't remember, as Gen X people, you should. But if you don't, and it just got me to thinking, like, I don't know who the equivalent of John Lennon would be today. I don't know who it would be. But there's no way that they're just going to let the play-by-play guys give that news now. First off, they would have been beaten to the punch by minutes, by X, by TikTok, by Instagram, whatever it was. That would have been out before the TV people could even get it off the ground these days, which is amazing in and of itself. But that delivery by Howard Cosell was amazing, right? He read it straight, shot outside his apartment building, taken to this hospital, dead on arrival. Frank,
very much
back to you.
Very much journalism of our past, right? Just facts, figures. Walter Cronkite, the same thing. You know, you just get right to it. And obviously, he being the broadcast professional, there was a timing issue. He had to get through that announcement to get back to be able, hey, because they're about to kick this field goal. So he had to get it in as quickly as possible with enough information so he could get back to the kick that was about to happen. So, you know, pull that off just in the moment, it's, you know, impressive, but that's why he was one of the great ones.
Yeah, Cosell was amazing. But the real interesting thing, and it was too long for us to play. I didn't want to pull a whole minute and a half or whatever it was. The conversation, because New England takes a timeout, so they go to break. And in break, that's how they found out. I guess they got in their ear, or I guess Rune Arledge, who was their producer at the time, was probably in the booth with them. Whatever it was, they get word from ABC News that this has happened. And Gifford and Cosell are having a conversation, almost not an argument, but a discussion about, are we the ones that need to say this? Are we the ones that, like, Cosell was really, like, he was like, I don't know that that's appropriate for us to do it in the middle of the game, which he may be right about.
Right.
But you're not going to go back to whoever it was in 1980. I don't know if it was Peter Jennings on ABC at the time or not. I don't know who it was. You're not going to go back to them in the studio and miss the game-winning kick. You're not going to do that. They're just not. It's not going to happen. So it's interesting to hear Cosell say, I don't think that we should be the ones to do it. And Frank Gifford goes, oh, no, we have to do it. This is worldwide news. This is a monster deal. It's almost like Cosell maybe didn't realize how big of an impact that John Lennon his death would have.
And that be part of it. I mean, Cosell had interviewed Lennon before.
Correct. He'd been on Monday Night Football. Yep.
So it wasn't as if he was just some celebrity that just got announced, you know, and he's like, what, who? I think for Cosell's perspective, and let's go back to the time, there was 3 networks on your television station. Pardon me. No social media, no cable. So if the news was going to hit, it was going to be from one of those 3 channels. Now, secondarily to that, Monday Night Football was the reigning king of television back then.
Correct.
You knew during the week, audiences were split, but usually Monday Night Football, because we didn't have Thursday, we didn't have Saturday and all the other nonsense. You had quite a bit of the American population watching football. So whatever, I don't know the numbers, 25, 30 million probably at that time were watching your station or your network. So, you know, you had a captive audience, you know, so he had to think of that. And also, I think I remember from one of the media, like ABC News, New York, they were having a discussion of, are we breaking in this game? What, you know, they didn't know how to handle it. So they were trying to figure it out, got them the information, and obviously they ended up doing the announcement. I mean, I think it worked out. I could definitely see why Howard at first was thinking, well, this is a football game and we're not journalists and breaking news. But, you know, Gifford saying, hey, this is worldwide. Maybe that sparked his head like, well, okay. And he got the announcement out there. Today, I don't, other than a president, I don't know who would rank to that level that you would get that break in the middle of a sporting event. Well, because A, like you said, it already be broken elsewhere, but B, who has that level of notoriety that would demand such?
Yeah, I think what would be able to do, and I don't know, again, I was 9. I don't know what the technology they would have had. I would imagine now they may do a picture-in-picture or whatever, or split screen or whatever it is, back to the newsroom, have the guys at the stadium throw to the news guy. He gives the information, and they say, if you want more, they've got thousands of channels now that they can go to. Mm-hmm. So they can be like, hey, if you want to keep update with this, check out whatever station it is. They've got wall-to-wall coverage of whatever it is that happened.
Yeah, it'd be on a crawler, much like that little green one we have there.
Yep, exactly.
Right? They might, I think you're right. They would have made a quick announcement, such and such has happened. For more information, go to, ABC News, whatever. Right. They'll be following the coverage. But back then it was, as we said, we finally got a 4th network when Fox came through. But, it was 3 network channels.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was it. So there wasn't a bunch of switch off, go here, go there. And if you think about it, it's kind of surprising. It wasn't as if 1980 television was new, right? So what were the standards prior to that, like with breaking news? And why was it such a hitch of, do we break in the middle of Monday Night Football with, right? Yeah. So to me, from that perspective, seems odd. Like it wasn't as if, TV's been around a couple years and we haven't experienced anything like this. TV been around. We had the assassination of JFK, right? So there was precedent for news break-ins. I guess the question becomes judgment on, was John Lennon worthy of what it was? And I think that's what it comes back to.
You're right. I think that's the ultimate question. Now, I will say CNN was literally months old. They debuted June 1st. I guarantee you they still at that point, and I would have to go back and see if I could find old videos of it. I guarantee you they weren't going to be the ones that were on top of this. ABC New York was going to beat CNN on this story, regardless of them being the 24-hour news network. It didn't matter. Back then, you just didn't have people everywhere ready to go at all times like you do now, where somebody can go on from their house and or whatever it is. So yeah, I think I also wonder if they're like, what, the game's almost done. It's
we just get out of it.
the guy's not coming back to life. I mean, he's gonna be dead in 10 minutes. He's gonna be dead in 15 minutes. Like, what is it?
Correct.
He's dead. It wasn't like there was some bombs being dropped over London. You had to tell people, hey, it's time to get to shelter. So it just kind of, and I don't know who would I was trying to think of like who rises to that level. And I mean, I guess if somebody were to do this outside somebody's apartment and it was a Taylor Swift situation, maybe. I don't even know if then, I mean, I think obviously people would break in and they would have the announcement of it, but does it have that impact? Maybe it's because I'm not a Taylor Swift fan that I don't think it would, but I don't know.
Well, I agree with you, maybe because we're not fans, but I also think because it's the landscape that has changed. There's too many other opportunities and everything where it would be out there and it wouldn't be the, do we break into the game? Because there's options now. And media is so fragmented that it wouldn't have to be the burden carried by one of 3 networks. Because I remember going back, and I can't remember which network because I was much younger, when Elvis died.
Oh, that was even before Lennon.
Right? So that's 76, 77?
77, I think, yeah.
Yeah. I remember because we were in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I remember breaking news, and it was about Elvis. And I remember my mother going, "Oh my goodness," and I was like, "Oh, okay." But I do remember whatever network it was breaking in with that news. So
right.
Like I said, who today? It would have to be a head of state or something just serious for that. But again, the landscape changed, so they wouldn't have to break into ESPN in the middle of they make the quick announcement, and like you said, via crawler or just saying for more information, tune into ABC News.
Right.
As we follow this continuing story.
Right.
So,
right. I mean, it was kind of that way when in the first Gulf War in the early 90s, it was sort of like that where, if there were airstrikes or whatever, you'd have a little crawler down at the bottom. And if you wanted more information, you went to CNN or whatever it was. And
but I remember CNN was wall to wall coverage.
Right. Right.
So it was there all the time, which
right.
I think that's the whole change in network news and everything. Like all of a sudden network news is going, well, we only have a couple segments during the day we have to break in, but now you've got CNN who's 24/7 showing the same thing over and over and over. Just as a media perspective and operations, like what changes happen. Because I remember sitting in the radio station in Richmond, Virginia, and CNN was on the TV and just, as you said, bombing shot after bombing shot, smart bomb, it was just continuous and just repeated itself until they got something new.
Yeah. And it was, and people have talked about this. I mean, we're not the first ones to come to this conclusion, but they basically treated it like a television show.
Yes.
It was like, what are you going to watch tonight? Well, we could watch, I don't know, early 90s. I don't even know what was on. I guess we could watch Cheers, or we could, turn over to the war. Let's turn on CNN. Let's see that's really what it felt like at times. It was like they were producing a TV show. It was wild.
Well, it was, the first big conflict since Vietnam, really.
Sure.
And that didn't do well on TV just for numerous reasons, coverage and people's sentiments about it. So, CNN, let's turn it into a TV show because we were all enamored watching tanks and the night vision shots of bombs going in and planes, and we were just, it was technology, and they had embeds that were now giving you live updates versus before. If you were embedded in World War II, Vietnam, you were most likely a newsreel or writer, and it would be a long time before anyone saw it, and now it was immediate. So a big change in, as we said, how news was reported and how it was covered.
Yeah, I can't imagine today, if people that are, it didn't impact teenagers in 1980 because the Beatles had broken up.
Yep.
So again, that's why even Gen X, the oldest of Gen X would have been 15 at the time. I'm sure it probably would have upset some of them, but the Beatles had long been broken up for about 7 years at that point. And John Lennon was still doing music here and there, but it wasn't like they were in the forefront, top of the charts on everybody's, they weren't on everybody's mind at that point. And it's amazing because Lennon was 40. Think of all the things that they did. The Beatles had been broken up for 7 years and he was still just 40 years old.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, and I think part of it is also Lennon had become a cultural icon through the 60s.
Sure.
Not so much for the music, but just that progressive, liberal, anti-war. Yep. So he was out there, himself, not just as a musician, but as, whatever you want to say, a cultural leader or of that nature. So for a lot of people, him being in that position and then hearing that he's gone, again, not us, not the edge of Gen X, but our parents and others were just oh my goodness, we've lost John Lennon.
Right.
So
yeah, no, it makes sense. My mom would have been 35, so she would, contemporaries basically as far as the age growth and growing up and everything. But yeah, it's just I'm not gonna liken it to Charlie Kirk. That simplifies stuff way too much, and I don't want to do that because Lennon much larger presence than Kirk, and I'll get back on that. But I don't care. You're wrong if you don't think that. But it is interesting in the sense that, think of all the theories that are around Kirk and what happened with him. There are a few here and there with Lennon, but for the most part, it's just a crazy dude walked up and shot him. I mean, it's kind of where we are now. You can get into MK Ultra stuff and all that other stuff that you want to talk about with the dude that shot Lennon, but there's not the swarming literally within hours of anybody these days of anything happening. There are half a dozen, if not 10 or more, immediate conspiracy theories. Nothing that happens is ever that just happened anymore. We didn't have that back then. Maybe we're all naive and all that kind of stuff was going on with all the conspiracies and everything else. But for the most part, I think this dude was crazy. He just walked up and he shot John Lennon. I mean, that's where I am on it.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think why we have conspiracies now to the level we do is, again, look at the media outlets.
Yeah.
Back then, it was 3 networks. If you weren't credible, you weren't a journalist at one of the 3, and that was it. Maybe your paper. Pardon me. But now anybody can go on Twitter. I mean, Facebook, just go down the list.
Right.
You have your own website and start spouting off, well, I think this is what really happened, and here's why. And again, research is readily available, so you can, real or not, start to make tie-ins and start to say, what about this? And then this happened. And we have access to so much more media, computer power than ever before. It allows this sort of thing. So,
and that leads into, and neither you or I have watched this yet, but I've heard a lot about it. I have a couple other friends that have watched a couple of the episodes of the P-Diddy documentary. You want to talk about conspiracy theories. I mean, it's crazy. Some of the stuff that is apparently in this documentary. Again, I have not watched it, but I've had a couple of friends that have been like, have you seen this? And I'm like, I've heard about it. They're like, telling you exact. So one of them, I'll just lay out a couple of them, and you could tell me again, because that is they're not Biggie and Tupac weren't our John Lennon, but that was a big deal for Gen X of these guys getting shot, the whole East Coast, West Coast rap battles, everything else. So here's one of the first ones. Biggie was supposed to be on the cover of Rolling Stone, right? I guess Puffy had an album that was coming out a few months later. So he had them cancel Biggie's Rolling Stone cover because he knew they wouldn't do like Biggie and then a few months later another, they wouldn't do him a few months later because, they're not going to do 2 rap covers. They weren't the source. It was Rolling Stone. So they weren't doing that much rap stuff anyway. So he got it canceled. Biggie ends up getting shot, and a few months later, Puffy's on the cover of Rolling Stone. Okay, so there's one there. And the entire time, he was just jealous of everything that was going on. The other one is they were in L.A., right? They are out there in L.A., and they were supposed to go to London, I think, to be interviewed by the BBC. It was going to be the first time the BBC had a rap artist come and sit down with them. Okay. They end up canceling the trip to the BBC, right? So they're supposed to take a flight out. They end up canceling it. And I think it's like the next day when they're still in LA, I think that's when Biggie got shot. So there's a whole thing around it about, well, why did they cancel the flight to London? Why did they, was he setting guys up? And then they're showing the video. Remember the MTV Music Awards a few months later after Biggie gotten shot when they had Sting out there doing, he sampled Every Breath You Take.
Yep.
Do you remember the performance with Diddy in all white? He's out there dancing and everything else. And everybody's like, you see Sting and he's like, real somber and singing the thing. And then Diddy's out there just dancing away. And everybody's like, he's literally dancing on Biggie's grave. That's what it looks like. It's just so I got to go and watch it, but it's just fascinating. Again, nobody was accusing Paul McCartney of having Lennon shot.
Right.
You know? Now there were conspiracies about whether or not Paul McCartney died in a car accident and they replaced him with a different Paul McCartney. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Remember the in what was it? I Am the Walrus, where it says Paul is dead at the end, all that kind of stuff. So there were those things going around, but nothing like this, where he's just connected to all these different things, and everybody's like, "Boy, that's odd." They're supposed to go to London, and they didn't. And he ends up dead. Kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, again, the conspiracy theories. Why? Because we have outlets, we have access to information. It allows for it to develop. And sometimes, as we've learned in some of these conspiracies, there is hints of truth in there, right? It all starts with little seeds that kind of make sense. Something happened. It may not end up being the real story, but it's enough to foment like, well, what if? What if? And so I look back and things I learned, watching the Straight Outta Compton movie, that I think the music business, especially in the rap world, was maybe a little bit infiltrated by unsavory characters who would bring a different edge on how we settle differences, what we need to do. I can believe that. Now, maybe not going off the offshoots of, well, this was planned, this is done. But there's a part of me that says something changed. And so maybe it is possible that these things happen. Not exactly what these exact conspiracy stories are, but maybe this happened and that was the truth. X happened. YZ didn't happen, but X did, but we're allowed to extrapolate and kind of make up stories for the other segments to create this conspiracy theory. But it would not surprise me based on everything, Diddy's in trouble for a lot of things, and you start to hear these stories of what the music industry was like, especially in that genre. I'm sure some dark things happened.
Well, I mean, if you remember, a lot of it was people at the time were trying to say, "Oh, it was Suge Knight who orchestrated the hit when Biggie was out there." Again, he was promoting his second album at the time, and everybody blamed Suge Knight. In fact, didn't Biggie's family sue the LAPD and everybody for basically the dirt? They said dirty cops allowed him to get killed. Wasn't that a lawsuit that they did?
I'm pretty sure there was, from what I remember.
Yeah.
So
a wrongful death lawsuit with the LAPD, and seems like all along it might not have been that. It might have been Diddy involved in all of it. I mean, it's crazy. I saw another one, and I don't think this is in the documentary. I was going down a rabbit hole, which you shouldn't do on X because it just, you end up in
or the internet.
Places. Yeah. Well, this one was that somehow, and I don't remember how it got there, but I guess before, is it Cassie was the one that got beat up by Diddy in the hotel? Is that who that was?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess there was another girl prior to that died from pneumonia that he had been with at one point. And there was like a couple of really suspicious, So somebody was trying to tie, and I just, my eyes glazed over and I went, okay, we can't do this anymore. They were trying to tie Brittany Murphy's. Do you remember the actress Brittany Murphy?
From Clueless, and yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
She also died in her home from pneumonia, as did, I think, her husband like months later. So they're like, it's a lot of pneumonia deaths. And they had some, again, thumbtacks with strings. And I mean, like, they're like, well, this and this and this. And I'm just like, okay, I mean, everybody since Brittany Murphy has died has been like, this is weird. Perfectly healthy 30-something-year-old die. That doesn't happen. There's a lot of conspiracies around it, but I can't I can't figure out how it traces back to Diddy. But anyway,
I don't
it's
get that
just
connection.
wild.
Well, I love. So, let's blame Oliver Stone for the JFK movie for getting us all riled up on
fair,
every possible angle.
But you know what? He may not be wrong.
He may not be wrong.
More and more stuff comes out. I'll be honest. I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I don't think that's the real story.
I will agree with you. I don't think it's possible, just from what I knew, and even seeing the movie help reinforce it. It just didn't make sense.
Right.
That this one guy with this old rifle was going to be able to do all this damage. That it just didn't make sense.
Well, and
without getting it into the politics, the same thing with Crooks and Butler, Pennsylvania, and Trump. It just doesn't make sense, and we quickly wiped up everything. You never hear about it. So something doesn't make sense. I can't say right, wrong, or what, but something feels funny about it. So
yeah. It's all of it is just strange.
Yeah.
And again, it's conspiracy stuff has been going on for years and years and years. And again, people are gonna think we're wackos. The government's the one that started calling things conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Because it was about the time of JFK and the Warren Commission and everything else. They were trying to discredit people that were like, that can't be right. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you're a conspiracy nut. They're the ones that put that out in the ether. And at the time, you didn't want to be called that. So it was easy to dismiss someone if the government or anybody else went up, that they're just a conspiracy nut. Now, conspiracy nuts, half the time you go, oh, I guess they were right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people are like, nah, that's not true. That's not true. And then you're like, well, all right, maybe it was true. Maybe there's a little bit of truth to it.
Right. And that's the thing. It's always the little bit of truth. The question is how much wasn't beyond, and how big that little bit is. And I think that's, where everything gets cloudy. The one I have not researched and I always find funny is, what was her name? Anne Heche, whatever.
Oh, Anne Heche. That's a crazy one.
Right. All I know is she died, but yet we've got this video of them dragging a stretcher out and you see her coming out of it.
Yes.
And I sit there and go, well, that doesn't make sense in any form of my brain.
Right.
What is going on? Why is she in a body bag, but fighting out of it? Because I work in emergency services. I can tell you, I've never seen that happen. So what is the story there? Again, I haven't researched it, but I've always said something doesn't seem right here.
A ton of weird stuff with the Anne Heche car accident and everything else. It's crazy. All this stuff. Yeah, that video is wild when the helicopters up above and they're like, oh, looks like they're putting her into the ambulance. Oh, she's up and I mean, like you hear the news people saying it seems to be that somebody's trying to get off the, I mean, like, almost like, again, you want to go deep conspiracy, almost like she knew they're taking me away to kill me.
Right.
I'm serious. I mean,
no, I mean,
it looks like somebody desperately trying to get away.
Yeah. So I don't, again, there's always a little bit of truth out there. The question is how much, we should go back and watch the X-Files again.
Yeah. The truth is out there. That is definitely the case. So it's funny because we were talking, as we were prepping for the show, you think about like Diddy's all in all this trouble. He's in jail for the other stuff that he had done. And now all these things are coming out in the documentary. I don't know that they can put him on trial for any of this stuff, but he's ruined, right? I mean, nobody's, even when he gets out, nobody's going to want to have anything to do with him, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean,
you think?
I don't think he's going to return to superstar status, but again, the landscape has changed. There's things you can do. You can make it. He could still make music. He could sell it on Spotify.
I just think that nobody's
opportunities are there.
I just don't think anybody's going to want to work with this guy at all.
No,
I think
that's the thing. He would have to do it on his own, and that's going to be the key.
Yeah, but no, right? Even then, I think people are gonna be like, "Nah, we're good. Thanks, though." I mean,
someone will do it. It may not be another celebrity, but there's someone who wants to get their producer creds, whatever.
No. I'm saying that when he puts the music out, I think most fans are gonna be like, "Nah, we're good. Thanks, though."
You think
good
fans
luck to you. I mean, I don't know. I won't have any interest in it. I know that. And I listened to all this. Look, Tupac and Biggie, I listened to all that pack. I mean, everybody did. But I had zero interest. You know what? I never even thought he was talking about Diddy, not Tupac or Biggie. I never thought Diddy was any good anyway, as like an artist.
Sampling and kind of had it. Yeah, there was no depth to it.
No,
is what I would say.
And he was always on Biggie's albums going, yeah. Bad boy for life. Like at the end of the verse, it's like, man, just shut your mouth. Like, stop already. It was too much.
Yeah,
too much Diddy, too much in your face. Like, you're not doing it. You're not the one with the flow. Cut it out.
So going with that, I think that's why he would have a hard time resurrecting anything, because you can argue, what did he actually bring to the table when he was supposedly this icon? You got me. So it'd be hard, but there's also the rest of the world. Like, he could just go to the Middle East or Africa, right? And just, be in charge there.
I'm not saying that he can't come out of jail and live a perfectly, luxurious life. I'm sure he's still got money, but I think he's just persona non grata when it comes to being a celebrity in the U.S. I think people are going to be like, nah, we're good. Thanks, though. It's kind of like, I mean, there will be people that will, for the spectacle of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be like OJ. That's the way I look at it. Like, people still like, oh, it's the Jews. Like, I mean, even though we know he killed 2 people. Right. And we know what happened in Vegas when he pulled the gun, and that's how he ended up in jail. But he ended up being a joke at the end of it. That's kind of what it was for OJ until he died. He was just a joke. He was just a meme. It was like, oh, look, here's OJ, the killer. Find him yet? I mean, that was, people would see him on the golf course and everything else. I just, lovable is not the word for it with OJ.
Yeah.
But I think he was, other than killing 2 people, he didn't seem to be a dick.
Yeah.
Diddy seems to be basically a jerk.
Well, his history shows that, as we've seen. Yeah. Like, so that would make it hard for people to, make him a celebrity again in the U.S. unless something earth-shattering happened. People would just distance, because I think there's just too much, whatever you would call it, negativity associated with him at this point. Like, there's always a little bit you can come back. My favorite always, Marion Barry, mayor of DC.
Oh my God! Well,
you can always come back. So, but there's probably just too much for him to resurrect anything of notability to come back and be what he was before. So,
all right. So the other big story this week, college sports. We can go to that before we get to the end here. Notre Dame, the college football playoff, all that stuff. People, I mean, we obviously, having gone to George Mason, well aware of James Madison, everything else. I'm happy for them. It's great. I mean, good for them making the college football playoff. But this whole thing of Notre Dame being ticked off and angry, and we're not going to go to a bowl game now. Okay, whatever. Here's my thing. Join a conference. This isn't a problem.
Correct.
You probably would have played in the ACC title game, and then you probably would have won, and you would be in. You can't be mad. Look, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you can be ticked off that Notre Dame didn't get in over Miami or Alabama or whoever. You can't be mad at Tulsa and James Madison. You know why? They didn't do anything.
They did what they were supposed to.
Yeah, they got in via the rules. You want to be mad at somebody? Be mad at UVA losing to Duke in the ACC title game and the ACC not having a champion. Because I think no matter what, it was an easy out for the committee when they looked at it and were like, we can't leave the ACC out. That's going to look really bad.
Yeah.
We could put Miami in. Okay, who are you going to put them in over? Well, they beat Notre Dame, so we'll just put them in over Notre Dame. I think if UVA had won, UVA would have been in. James Madison wouldn't be in. And I wonder if Miami is out at that point.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it's
it would have
possible.
reshuffled everything. For Notre Dame, I say when you want to play this we're independent game, this is what happens.
Right.
It's somewhere you've got to go. They say it in prison. Somewhere you got to pick your group to be with to get through. You can't just go it alone. So, as much as Notre Dame wants to play this, we're independent. We're Notre Dame. Well, truly, your peak was years ago, and I'm not saying they're not a good program now, et cetera, but at this point, you need to pick something. Whatever league you want to be in,
right,
and play by the rules because that's where the money is. That's how the game's played, and stop the nonsense. And it's the risk you take. If you want to stay independent, it's the risk you take that you could be left out because you're not part of the coalition. Let's just call it that with college football. It's a coalition. The fact that Tulsa and James Madison are in, I'm sure in certain circles would be, man, if we could have gotten Miami and Notre Dame in, but we had to take these two.
Right.
The same that's going on in college basketball of how do we get more bigger programs in the playoffs, March Madness, than bringing in these other smaller, lesser programs, if you will.
Right.
So it's the risk you take, Notre Dame. So
and that's talking about the college basketball. They're going to vote on that, I guess, in April coming up, whether or not to expand to 72 or 76 or at all. Look, I know there are more Division I teams now than there was when it expanded to 68. I get all that, whatever. I don't want this thing watered down to the point of, like you said, you expand from 68 to 76, 8 more teams. Those 8 teams are not coming from the smaller conferences. They're not coming from the Mountain West. They're not coming from the A10. They're not coming from any of the – they're going to be Big 10, Big 12, ACC, SEC schools. I mean, the SEC put in, 14 last year? What do we need? Yeah. We need 15 from the –
makes a difference, yeah.
If you're going to expand, here's the deal. Unless you win your conference tournament with a sub 500 record, if you can't go 500 in your conference,
correct,
you shouldn't. No chance of being an at-large team. If you go 4-14 in the Big Ten, I don't care what you did. I don't care if you went 13-0 outside of it, and you're sitting there at 17-14, and you're above 500. You couldn't sniff 500 in your conference. You're not going to the NCAA tournament as an at-large team.
Right. That's and to me, that was always the critical factor of determining, are you a tournament team? Well, yeah, you're a big school and you came out of the Big Ten, but you lost everybody.
Right.
Like, we already have the proof of you playing against the better teams and you didn't do well. So why is that a reward? Just because you came from the bigger conference. And that's what always disgusted me as, the mid-major alumni and fan of, there's plenty of, I don't care. They played who they played and they won 28 games. How do you leave them out of a tournament? Because, they're playing good basketball and they deserve a chance, and that's why I say it's what you deserve for what you've done in the season earns you playing by the rules to get in. So Madison, Tulsa in football, certain schools within March Madness for playing their games, but you're right. Not the 18-12, finished 8th place in the Big Ten deserves to go to the tournament. You just don't.
Right. And they'll argue, but these other schools, they wouldn't be able to beat these bigger teams. You don't know. You know why? Because they don't play them.
They won't
play them. So, you got a team from a smaller conference that goes 28-4 during the regular season, and people go, oh, yeah, but look, 2 of their losses were when they had opportunities to play the bigger schools and they got beat. Okay, I guarantee you none of those bigger schools went to, Campbell or, visited at Winthrop or whatever smaller school you want to say. Those teams aren't showing up there. You know why? There's a chance they'll get beat.
Yeah.
There's a good chance and they don't want to take that chance. Yep. So they're not going to show up there.
You probably remember a little bit more detail than I do. The year it was Drexel. Mm-hmm. They went on the road and beat just about everybody, even big schools. And got left out of the tournament.
Yeah.
And I was just to me, that was the injustice that year because, hey, they did exactly what you said. They went, they beat big schools. They were on the road. They took these games. They beat people. And, they had a slip up. I think it was during the conference tournament, which.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
And, sorry. And I hate that is how they, these teams like Drexel that year and others, the list goes on and get left out because they slipped up at the end. But overall, a great season. But yet these other teams played nobody and they're out of conference because they're the big school, had all the bye games, and then still couldn't beat most of the teams in their own conference. And somehow they're deserving for the tournament.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what year it was for Drexel. They made it in 2012. It was that was the year after we left. Mm-hmm. So maybe was that the year that they went? I'm looking at their schedule. No, I guess that was our last year in the CAA, I should say. Yeah, I mean they lost to VCU in the finals and then didn't get in. They went to the NIT. But I'm looking. They really didn't play anybody on their schedule that year.
Okay.
So that wasn't it.
There was one year they took all these bye games and
I'm looking.
And maybe it was that year. Maybe I was off on who they played, but I thought there was, within that.
I mean, they were 29-7.
Okay.
On the season, and they ended up, they were 45 in Ken Palm, and they didn't get a sniff. I think that must have been the year because every other year they're not that highly rated. So,
yeah. And I could be off because it wasn't that whatever you want to call it, their 10-game out of conference but there was 3 or 4 in there,
right?
That they got quality wins, and then at the end it was nope, you lost. So sorry. But yet they had a good season.
Yeah, I mean the one year they went on the road, they beat St. Joe's, who was an A-10 team. Obviously, then they went and beat Louisville at Louisville, and Louisville was a top 100 team that year. So I mean, maybe that was the year. I don't know, but yeah, there's always that case where you see somebody. They got a big win on the road. They beat the big bullies. And then they still get, because they trip up in conference play like everybody does.
Late in the year.
There's zero margin.
Injuries,
Zero margin of error for any of these mid-major to low-major schools that you don't understand. They can say, it's so hard to play on the road in the Big Ten. You know what? It's way harder to play on the road in those smaller conferences. Because it is life. If you're, I don't know this year who's good in the Big Ten. If you're Michigan, let's say, or whoever the top of the Big Ten is, I don't know who it is right now. And you go on the road and you lose to a Maryland, let's say, because Maryland is not good this year. No one's gonna be like, Michigan, you're gonna have to drop them all the way down to like a 7 seed because they went and lost to a bad. It's gonna be like, it's so hard to go to Maryland and play. It's not. It'll be empty when Michigan's in town in College Park if they're coming there this year. I don't know what their schedule is. The fans at Maryland, they're great fans, but if the team stinks, people aren't showing up for that. It's not going to be a hard place to play.
Mm-hmm.
But you get into some of these smaller conferences, and they're playing in 2,500 seat arenas, and it's packed to the rafters. That's a hard place to play.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't matter if a team goes 16-2 in their conference and they stub their toe against the lower ranked team. It won't matter. Like, you lost to a team 175 ranked. Yeah, but it was on the road on a Tuesday. Like, yeah, that's gonna happen. It's almost impossible to go undefeated in conference play.
Yeah. So it's the disparity that's always been there, and I hate it. I guess for me, expand, like you said, I don't mind necessarily expanding the NCAA tournament, but it was to get more quality teams in is what I wanted to see, not add more mediocre from the big conferences because we think that's what makes TV ratings.
Right.
Because teams that play well, some have been just on that cusp, and sometimes, it's just the numbers game. But another 10 teams so we can get some of these 27-5 teams that weren't going to make it otherwise. That's the stuff I wanted to see, but I don't know. is more of this NIL and everything keeps changing the landscapes.
I know.
Who knows what this is going to look like? Even if they decide, hey, we're going to expand the NCAA tournament in this vote, I don't know if that's going to hold water 5 or 6 years from now because, look at Utah. We've got private equity coming in. It's just NIL's already made huge changes. Now, if you're going to get private equity in, all these, who knows what it's going to happen because the money is going to determine what will be the future versus the NCAA committee voted to do this today.
Right. Well, the wild thing is, like, what's that going to do to ticket prices now in Utah? Right? Like,
look at Las Vegas. Private equity took over Vegas and everything went through the roof. Right.
And that's going to be, you think these private equity people are teaming up with Utah out of the goodness of their heart? They're going to want 15, 20% returns on their money. They're not looking to do this because, we're going to make Utah the powerhouse out, in the West. It's not why they're doing it. They expect money. So you can bet your season ticket prices are going to go up and everything else. But it's funny talking about the NIL money. Did you see the story of Troy Aikman saying, I'm not giving UCLA a dime anymore?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He had, I guess the story is he had written a check. The way he implied it, it was right to a particular player. Now, I don't know that that's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably the NIL collective went to him and said, hey, we need to raise X amount of dollars to keep this guy here. Right. And he probably thought that meant he was writing the check directly to the guy, but whatever. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know how they're working it. But he basically said, yeah, I wrote the check. This guy left after a year. So we're no loyalty, no anything else. Now it's funny to hear him say no loyalty. He transferred, of course, from Oklahoma to UCLA.
Yeah.
But he makes a good point that he's like, these guys just leave every single year. So he's like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not going to write that check. And he said somebody has to figure out all this transfer stuff. He's not wrong. It needs to be figured out somehow, some way, because it is ruining all levels of college football, college basketball, whatever you want to say. It's just ruining it.
Yeah. You would think the NCAA would have been a part. No, they got their hands tied by the courts. The courts said, hey, no, they can transfer at will.
Right.
So you kind of left the governing body without any teeth to do anything. It's just a mess because I don't know, remember back in the day, it was all about graduation rates. And they were talking about, hey, even if the student left your school, we're still tracking him at his new school, but basing it on you, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's the use of enforcement of that anymore? Because he leaves us for 1 year. He goes to the next school for a year. He goes to the next school for a year. We've talked about it. I said, are these kids even really going to any classes? They're not going to get a degree out of this at all. It's just,
they can't because they'll go to school for 4 years. They'll go to 4 different schools in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Their credits all don't transfer.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're done, and now you don't have a degree. Your eligibility's out, so you have no way of making money from NIL anymore. And I know some people talked about it and said, yeah, but these guys they're gonna be millionaires when they get out of school. No, you're talking about the elite of the elite.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that's transferring from Wofford to Presbyterian to Elon to Drexel in 4 years or whatever it is. Yeah, he may come out of college with more money than a normal student will come out of college with, a couple $100,000 if he's smart with his money and everything else. That's not going to get him past 4 or 5 years, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And now he has no degree. Maybe he can go play overseas, but probably in leagues that aren't paying him a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So now what? And then who's going to be on the hook for him to finish college? Like, if you take the guy as a senior, is it your responsibility now to make sure that he, even if he's not playing for your school anymore, to make sure he gets his last 10, 12, 15 credits at your school so he graduates? I don't know that that's a thing anymore. Like in the past, I think coaches would have to say, hey, you come here, even if something happens, we're going to make sure you get your degree, everything else. And if you didn't, other coaches would use that in recruiting against you. Well, that's not a thing anymore. Because No one cares. The players don't care about getting the degree. They don't.
I'm sure. And I think, to me, and as much as it would hurt things, since the court said, hey, NCAA, you can't oversee this, you can't lay these rules, someone's got to say, then we're done with scholarships, and they are no longer students. They're not here to take classes. They're not here to get a quote unquote degree like the old days. They are just employees, and let it go that way, because the rest of trying to maintain that, oh, these are student, it's a farce at this point. I know nothing. I would hate to be on the academic side within a university having to deal with this, because like you said, they're there for the money. They're there to play sports. They don't care about classes. Why even put the resources into that to make it a faux student athlete situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole other podcast, and people have done it. But the idea that these guys become employees, the universities don't want anything to do with that. They will fight that tooth and nail, mainly because you've got all sorts of different things that go with that, including, the insurance. And again, I had a lawyer friend of mine, unfortunately, passed away a few years ago, but he and I talked about this when it first started being talked about, well before NIL, well before anything else, about, athletes being employees, because there was, I forget the case it was, but I think it involved a basketball player from Northeastern that punched a kid in a game. Either he got punched or he punched somebody, and the player that got punched was suing, I think it was Northeastern, but anyway, was suing the school that the kid played for, because he said, hey, he's a representative of your university. He assaulted me. Therefore, you're responsible. And it didn't work in the courts at that point. But my lawyer friend said, I pray that I'm able to get the case the day that these guys are getting money from the schools and something like this happens. Actually, the example that he gave me was a assault, let's say, happens on campus in a dorm room. He said, here's the deal. You're a basketball player, a football player, lacrosse, whatever it is. Your workplace is that school. So all of a sudden, you have something happen on that campus in the dude's dorm room or the chick's dorm room, whatever it is. He's like, I'm going to own that school. He's like, I'll win that. He goes, that is an unsafe work environment. He goes, and if there's anything in the background of the person as a juvenile that they knew about, forget it. It's a slam dunk. He's like, they won't even go to court. They'll be writing me a check within 2 weeks. So that's the universities. They know that. They don't want anything to do with making these people, the athletes, employees. Because, again, if you have anything in your background, a lot of stuff is sealed up as a juvenile, but some of these things make the papers, especially if you're a high-profile athlete and you get in trouble. It's going to be out, so it's going to be known. Or maybe it happened at your previous college, and a guy or a girl or whoever has a background in this, has something in their past, and you bring them to your campus and something else happens. That's a lawyer's dream. You knew the person was a danger.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I would question the, legal precedent. Would they set it up much like the NFL? Because teams aren't getting sued because, a certain player did X, Y, Z to the wife or anyone else.
But if it happened at their facility, you better believe they'd be getting sued.
Well, right. So, and that's, so if they become employees and
they're on their college campus,
you don't go to the dorms. You don't live there, right? You start getting these natures of, you're an employee. You can live close by, but rent your house. You show up to practice. It becomes almost like a professional athlete. You're just not here other than playing the sport and whatever that requires. You're not in the dining halls. You're not, and again, it becomes the farce of student, it's
right. They're not student athletes at that point. They're just employees.
They're just employees. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
But the well's been poisoned for college athletes just in general, as you fence or swim, because this is just a nightmare mess
for
basketball, football, and what's happening.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Before we get out of here, we do have a kind of good news story or college athlete story, college athletic story, I should say, in that it is the weekend coming up as we record this on December 10th. On the 13th, this Saturday, George Mason, where we both went to school, is going to be honoring the 2006 Final Four team. They're doing a thing Friday night, little fireside chat. Coach Larinaga is coming back into town. A lot of the players are going to be back into town, and then they're going to, do the thing on Saturday at halftime, introduce them all. They're dropping a banner for Coach L. He'll be the first one, coach or player, having a banner in what is now Eagle Bank Arena. I hope that becomes a trend and we do more of it, because there are a lot of guys that deserve it, not only from this Final Four team, but obviously all this week, a lot of people thinking back to that time. I was fortunate enough. That was my first year, not of calling games with Mason, but it was my first year as the play-by-play voice. I've been the analyst for the 7 years prior. So, I mean, I've got a ton of things, but what do you look back on? You were out of school, obviously, at the time for over a decade at that point, but what do you remember about 2006 and that whole run?
Well, I was fortunate. My job was flexible. So I went to the first round Dayton and then came back and, for the next rounds, we were lucky. It was in Washington, D.C., so we didn't have to travel. But I just remember for those 2 weeks, I would go have breakfast before work and you just pull up any paper, USA Today, the Washington, and there was just article after article just talking about the team. And, if you're at a bigger school, you've probably been through this. But I knew at that time it was just lightning in a bottle for us. Like, we're this unheralded mid-major team. We were good, but we made it, all the way through the Final Four, and just the frenzy around it, the excitement. I remember coming out of what was it, the Verizon Center? I can't remember what they called it back then.
I think it was Verizon Center.
After we beat UConn, and I just remember standing on the sidewalk like, we're going to the Final Four. I was shell shocked, even after watching the game and obviously how it finished. Just beside myself that we had reached this. I wouldn't call it the pinnacle, but this level of basketball that was just unheard of at the time. We were the first true mid-major to make it to the Final Four. So it was just an amazing time. It's kind of hard to put into words, but yeah, it was just so exciting because it was so unheard of, so different. All the years of toil before that, watching the team just fall apart and have bad years, and just have this moment where we've made it. We've arrived. We're playing with the big boys. So, and that's part of the reason why I love the tournament stuff we were talking about earlier. Get these good teams in.
Yeah. I mean, it was when we were in school, they were coming off. Our freshman year was the year after they had made the NCAA tournament for the first time and got smoked by Indiana they played their game out in Arizona, wherever the regional was. And then the next year, the freshman year, we were okay, not great. Yeah. I think was it 90 or not? I think it was 91. We lost to Richmond in the finals. Mm-hmm. I think our first year we lost to JMU in the semis. And then the next year we made it to the finals and lost to Richmond by 3 because Navy had knocked off James Madison in the first round, and 8-1 because Navy was leaving. They were going to the Patriot League. It was their last year in the conference, and they beat JMU, who's the 1 seed with Lefty Driesell, in overtime. So we were the 4 seed, played Navy the next day instead of playing JMU, beat them. And then Richmond, I think, was either the 2 or the 3 that year. So it was us and them. We had a lead at halftime, and we ended up losing. Jim Shields, I think, was the big post player for Richmond, and had like 26 in the game. I think we ended up losing that one like 81-78 or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know we had a lead and then gave it up. And then after that semifinal game that we won to go play Richmond in the finals was the last tournament game in conference that we won for 7 years. The next 7 years, we lost in the first round of the conference tournament every year without fail. So
basketball desolation. We enjoyed going to Richmond for the tournaments, but it was always, oh, we're done. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, pack light.
So or just stay and watch other basketball for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
But So we come from that place of desolation after there's so much hope. I remember when I was going to Mason, somewhere they said was the sleeping giant of the East is what they called the basketball program.
Yep.
That it was coming. And so excitement. And then we just went through that desolation period. Larinaga comes in and forget the Final Four. He turned the program around. He made us competitive, got us going, with George Evans, those first few years. And it brought back, we're playing good basketball at least now, even though the success wasn't quite there. But that Final Four year was just absolutely stunning to experience as a fan at that time, especially for a school like ours.
Yeah, Larinaga did a remarkable job because, again, he followed the 4 years of Paul Westhead. And, look, we were in school for some of that. We know a lot of the guys that played on those teams and everything. It just – it did not and was not working. And in year 2, Larinaga had it turned around. We went to the NCAA tournament in 99. Now, we had a player hurt. Eric Herring was hurt in that game in Cincinnati with Kenyon Martin and all those guys crushed us. It wasn't ever a game up there in Boston. But then 2 years later, and I've said this many, many times, the game that we lost to Maryland in the first round out in Boise, again, had a late lead, turned the ball over late. If we beat Maryland that year, I'm not saying they would have made it to the Final Four. They had a real good shot of getting to the Sweet 16 and maybe the Elite 8 because there was an upset on the other side of the bracket out in Boise. I think it would have been Georgia State maybe that we would have played in the next round. Probably would have beat them. Then you got to the 16, and it would have been Georgetown out in Anaheim, California. Those guys had all played against and with the Georgetown. There was not going to be any, oh, my God,
fear factor.
Georgetown. They would have had a shot at that. And then, again, you take your chances when you get that far. But I really firmly believe that 2001 – if we beat Maryland, the 14-3 game, we probably are in the Sweet 16 in 01.
Yep. And I go with that because I remember once you mentioned them, it was Georgia State had the upset. And it was like, we can play against them any day, any time of the week. Not a problem.
Yeah.
So at least you felt like you had a chance. So I do remember that. It was all because that errant pass in between.
Yep. That George Evans couldn't come up with. Yep. And even people remember that pass, but even still, we had a shot at the buzzer to send the game to overtime, and it back rimmed from about 35 feet out. They took, threw the ball at the floor, got a shot, and it was close to being one of those, oh my God moments that they would have made the shot, but obviously it didn't happen. And I think Maryland ended up going to the Final Four that year and then won it.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Yep. And that was the year in 01. They were up big on Duke and blew the big lead in the Final Four against Duke. And it was just devastating for Maryland fans. And then the next year they beat Indiana in the finals to win the title for Gary and those guys. But yeah, we absolutely could have made this at least a Sweet 16 and maybe gotten to the Final 8 that year. So, but then, 5 years later, there you are sitting in the Final Four. 5 years after that, in 2011, we go out. We beat Villanova as the 8th seed, which is the highest that a Mason team has ever been, and then had a real tough time against Ohio State after one of our guys wasn't able to play because of food poisoning, Luke Hancock. But yeah, and then just kind of been wandering in the desert since then. It's hard to believe it's been 15 years since the last time we hit anything as far as being an NCAA team. So it's crazy because this is the longest for all that misery that we had after making the CAA finals in 91 and then going 7 years without winning a conference tournament game. This stretch now from 2011 to current is the longest time since Mason went D1 back in 1978. It's the longest stretch of us not being in the NCAA tournament.
No.
Because we started D1 in 78. We were in the tournament in 89. It took 11 years for us to make our first NCAA tournament. The next one after that was 99, 10 years. And then 2001, then 2006, then 2011. It's going to be 2026. That's 15 years. It's the longest stretch in school history without going to the NCAA tournament.
And so let me ask you, because you were closer to the program doing the games than just me as a fan for the Final Four and going through this desolation for the past 15 years. What was it like doing the games during that Final Four run? Because being an alumni, which is sometimes kind of rare for guys doing the broadcast, and being that close and intimate and seeing what's happening and behind the scenes and everything, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, first year doing play-by-play, and I had done other games. I mean, heck, you and I did games back in college together. So, I mean, it wasn't like, okay, here's your first chance to do play-by-play. I had called games in the past. So that part of it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. I'm actually doing play. I had done games, but never been the kind of permanent guy. It was different and weird. In some ways, I'm like, that couldn't have been a better year. Obviously, you go to the Final Four. What an amazing thing. But I almost wish that I had been in place for, say, 5 years prior to that, like, because then I think I would have had a better appreciation and would have, it's not like I handled it wrong, but I think I would have known to like really pay attention to, okay, I should make sure that I'm doing this, or I need to make sure that I remember this, or I need to make sure, because like you're so caught up in all of it that you forget. I just remember when it was all done, like we lose the game in Indy to Florida, we get home. I just remember the next week being like, wow, that it happened so fast. And I didn't take time to be like in the moment to like look around. Like I can remember I was so concentrated on like, I want to make sure that I'm being professional. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing, that I never really took the time to just literally look around and be like, this is unbelievable. There's probably only 2 moments that I had that I remember doing it. One of them was in the UConn game when we made the big run in the second half to get back to, we were down, was it 9 at halftime or whatever it was? And we come back, we take the lead. I think it was either a TV timeout or UConn call a timeout, whatever it was. And the band played Living on a Prayer. And this is, again, it predates our current band director, Doc Nix, by a year. He came the following year. So it was just the regular student band or whatever. And again, the arena was 90% Mason people, or at least people that were rooting for Mason because they were from the area and rooting against UConn. They just wanted to see an upset, be a part of history. But I just remember sitting there, and I mean, even with my headphones on, you could hear people singing, and it was crazy. And I remember turning around and looking, and Michael Wilbon from ESPN and everything at that time was writing for the Post, and I had met him a couple other times, various things. So I'm not gonna say I know Michael Wilbon, at least then I didn't. I've had an opportunity to work with him since then, but I remember turning around and catching his eye, and he just shook his head like, this is unbelievable. And he was just like looking at me like, I think you guys can do this. So that was one of the moments when I was like, oh my God, people are like, you got to remember, you're looking at Michael Wilbon, you're looking at all these other big time writers that are like, I think you guys can do this. You know, like I always felt like nobody, obviously nobody expected us to, but I always felt like the media just was dismissive of us constantly. That was the first time with Wilbon there going, I think you guys got him. I think you got him. So, and then the second one was that same thing. And it sucks now. And I wish I had the picture. But it may be in a box somewhere. I don't know. But do you remember Cam Gray?
Yep.
So Cam went to Mason, was a radio guy. I think he was working with the Dynamite Show when you were an intern there, maybe. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe Cam hadn't started with them yet.
No, he hadn't started with them yet. It was after me is when he started with them. Yep.
Okay. So Cam, for those who are local to DC, Cam Gray went to Mason, but he also worked as a producer for the Donna Mike Show here in DC, which is a big, huge radio show. I know you interned for him. There are a couple other of my friends that interned for him as well. We can tell those stories at another time because they're great. But Cam, actually, I got him on our media list as my statistician for the game because he wanted to come to the game. So he sat with me and Jen Surlis, who was doing the games with me, the former Mason women's player. And we took a picture at center court after the game was done of, just standing there. The confetti is on the floor around us. You can see people in the background. It's a great photo. I wish I knew where it was because unfortunately Cam passed away a couple of years. And that's like that whole run was like the kind of big memory of that I had with Cam of him being at the games and all that kind of stuff. So I know it's in a box, I think somewhere, but those are probably the only 2 times where I went, I need to soak all of this in, that when they were singing Living on a Prayer and then Cam and I taking that picture. But I mean, I'll be honest, we got to Indy and it was like just whirlwind, like go here, go here, go here. And I was so concentrated on, I'm not going to be a distraction. I'm not going to break any of the rules. Like I had my own hotel room at the hotel and you had to show a key to get in because they didn't want people like hanging out in the lobby. And I can even remember I was dating my ex at the time. We'd been together less than 6 or 7 months, I think, at that point. And she came up. She was a Mason grad. She came up with friends from Indy. Like I wouldn't even let her in the hotel because I was like, seriously,
you're playing by the book.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know if I'll get in trouble. I don't know if people are going to be like, oh, he's bringing this girl. Like, I don't know how this works. Now, I found out later on when I've told that story to other people, like within the administration, they're like, yes, she should have been there. She should have been a part of all of this with us. We wanted to have everybody involved in it. They're like, it wouldn't have been a problem. I'm like, well, if I had known that would have been better. But I just remember when the other story, and I mean, there's so many to tell, but this kind of gets into it again, where you go, oh, this is a huge deal, more than you think. We were practicing at a local Indianapolis high school. I don't remember the name of it. And so the bus pulls up, and of course, there's just a gaggle because they tell you when, I mean, there's going to be media stuff availability. They tell you, like, everybody knew where UCLA was, LSU, Florida. It wasn't like it was some big secret. They all had their things. And the week prior to that, I had done my one and only hit on ESPN. We had done it from the studios there at GMU. And I had been on with a couple other people talking about, the 11th seed making the Final Four. So they were talking about like LSU and Shaq was there and all that kind of stuff. And Len Robbins, who wrote for I think he was with the New York Daily News, was on that show with me. I never met Len before. So we're talking, blah, blah, blah. We do the segment. We're, done. We're getting ready to get off the air. Len said, Bill, I will see you in Indianapolis. I want to make sure I say hello. And I was like, yeah, great. Didn't even think anything about it. I was like, oh, Len, that'd be great. If you see me, obviously let me know. We'll sit and talk, whatever stories I can give you. It's fine. So we get off the bus at the Indiana high school for practice. And it is, I mean, again, packed wall to wall with fans, with media and everything. And I get off. I'm one of the last people off because I'm like, again, you let the players go. I don't want to be like, hey, everybody, like following the people out. So I get off the bus and I see Len. And so I walk over to him and I'm like, hey, I was like, I didn't know you're going to be here. We're chatting. And I said, this is crazy, man. I said, I can't imagine. I said, there must be so many people in town. I said, if everybody's got this much media, this is nuts. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, well, there must be 100 media people here. I said, if there's this many for UCLA, and he goes, nobody's over watching Florida. He goes, nobody's watching. He goes, who cares about you? He's like, you guys are the story. He's like, Nobody is over at these other practices. He goes, their beat reporters are there. He's like, but no feature writer. He goes, he's like, there's nobody from the, I think it was the New York Post. He's like, there's nobody from the Post over with UCLA. Who cares about UCLA? He goes, you guys are the story. He goes, no one's paying attention to anybody else. And that's when I was like, oh, wow. I thought, you get to the Final Four, then you're just another school. You made it great. You're just another school that's going to get covered. But it wasn't the case. And I mean, there's obviously the famous story about the team running into Billy Packer at the restaurant and, him not really wanting to apologize for what he said and all those things. There's tons of stories that are out there. But that one to me, when I was in Indy, when I got off the bus and there's all the media around, and I was like, I mean, I'm sure I look wide-eyed because I covered the Ravens. I'd covered, worked for the Wizards for a while. This was different. This was, again, to kind of tie it into a bow, you felt like what it must have been like, maybe not on the same level, but like you're getting escorted from place to place. You have security on a 1/100th of a scale of what it was like for like the Beatles when they would go places. Because they were, that team was rock stars. Everywhere they went for those 2 weeks, they were rock stars. It didn't matter where you were. Everybody was coming up and talking to you. It was crazy. And even to this day, when I go and I'll go do a game at some place, even just recently down in Florida with the team this year, and you meet some people from the other schools. We played Ohio, and the guy had been at Ohio for a long time, and we were trying to figure out, Mason had played at Ohio, but I think it predated him because it had been a while. And he goes, when did you start with them? And I said, well, 99, I was the analyst until 05, 06, and then I became the play-by-play guy. And immediately he goes, what an amazing year. What a great – so everybody, when you talk to, when you meet, and you find out, oh, you're George Mason. Oh, when did you start? My first year was 05, 06. Immediately they're like, that's unbelievable. So you still hear about it constantly. I don't think it'll be as much now. Do the 20th anniversary. You drop the banner for Coach L. And hopefully, because I know Tony and Lamar and all those guys, I've talked to them again. We have this thing coming up on Friday. And I've asked them, I said, hey, we need new stories because these have all been told. Everybody knows them, right? That's the thing. Yeah. And I'm like, I said to Lamar the other day, and he wasn't being dismissive. He wasn't being, ungrateful for anything. I just said, is there anything that you want to talk about? He goes, quite honestly, I'm tired of talking about it. I think that's where those guys are now. Like they know what was done. They know what they did. They appreciate the fact that they were able to do this, and they're very proud of it. But they're also like, you know what? There's got to be more. They don't want to be defined by 3 weeks when they were 20
years ago.
Yeah.
No. So, and I was going to say sometimes you see it real quickly with celebrities and stuff. They peak, they had something special happen when they're young, and that is hung on their necks forever, even though they're, especially athletes and these guys, we know them, they're motivated. They're trying to do other things and move on. And obviously Tony's coaching and others have gone on other careers. And that's, they're still brought back to, hey, 20 years ago, you did this great thing. Right. So I can imagine that part can be tough for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a little weird. And it's funny you said it, because I always, whenever somebody says, you kind of get stuck. You think about Jerry Mathers, who played the Beaver.
Yeah.
He never had really another gig because that was it. He was he got stuck as that's all he did. And I think that these guys, again, they're very proud of it. It's in no way disparaging towards the school or the fans or anything, but they don't want to be thought of as just that. They're not just that. Like you said, Tony's coaching now, and he's doing a great job. He set a bunch of records with Mason. They don't want to be remembered for just that, which is, I think, a great legacy for them to leave is, hey, we did this thing, but look what else we've done.
Well, you just have to remind Mr. Butler that he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Oh, he knows.
That is even more rare than going to the Final Four. So He needs to embrace that one. I would personally, I'd have that thing blown up to like a 8-foot by 10-foot poster and put it in my living room, and that would be it forever.
I'll see if I can do this. This might be a little bit tough. It's going to get janky, so I apologize for the camera. I'm going to take this, and let's see if I can do it. You talk about, I'm wrapped around things here. Sorry.
Oh, dear.
You talk about the Sports Illustrated. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I see it.
But
I mean, I can recognize it because I know it. So
yeah, it's a little backwards. That ball, if I could get, it's kind of tough because I'm trying to do this and talk at the same time. So that ball, I don't know if you can see the ball underneath. That ball is an actual ball that was used at the Final Four.
Oh, wow.
Like game ball. I don't mean like a practice rack ball. That is a game ball from the Final Four.
DNA on that ball.
There is, and I've had Lamar and Tony have autographed it. It's coming out of that case. It's coming with me this weekend to get the rest of the autographs. But that's the Sports Illustrated right above there. To the right, you can kind of make it out a little bit. These here are all my press passes and other various things. At the very bottom, it's probably really hard to see, but that's a piece of the final, the regional final net from the Verizon Center.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So I've got some things that are over there taken care of. But yes, I have that Sports Illustrated back up there on my wall. I've never had him sign it because it feels a little weird because you know these guys so well. That's the other nice thing about it is I'm still friends if you want to call it, with a lot of these guys, and still talk to a lot of them. I just talked to Gabe Norwood, who's still playing over in the Philippines.
How old is he now and still playing?
He's 40. He's still getting it done. It's unbelievable. He's a great dude. So yeah, he and I were texting back and forth a couple weeks ago. He's doing real well. He's kind of disappointed that he can't be here for the reunion, but I still talk to Tim Burns, who's up in New York, and he actually does a lot of basketball training for like college kids, NBA players. He's done really well for himself. So really excited to see Tim come down. Of course, I do games with Will and Chris Fleming. There's a lot of guys. It's just going to be neat to have them around. But the basketball will be coming out of the case, and we will get hopefully Coach L and all the guys that are in town to finish off the signatures. I have Tony and Lamar's on it so far. So, yeah.
You got a special bag, like a bowling ball bag to carry it in?
The funny thing is I don't have a bowling ball bag, but I had just like an overnight bag. I'm not going to just carry it around. I'm actually going to put it in, and I have the paperwork from the auction that I bought it. I bought it from a guy who was known as the father of the Final Four. He was the one that kind of put it together with the NCAA. And unfortunately, a few years ago when I was going through my cancer stuff, he and his estate, I guess they knew he was close to passing away, so they were liquidating a lot of his stuff. There was a ton of things from all various years of Final Fours that this guy had. Again, he worked for the NCAA forever. That looking back on it, I'm like, I wish I had bought more because I bet some of this stuff is way more valuable than a George Mason basketball. But it was on there, and it said it has to be from. I can't verify that it was from our semifinal game with Florida or if it was the UCLA LSU game. I know it's not the finals ball because I'm sure Florida has that. So it had to be from one of those, but it said, and it's got the provenance of it, of game used ball 2006 Final Four. So it was one of the ones they used. And then obviously he got it at the end and took it home with him or whatever, because nobody else wanted it, I guess, but it's got the logo on it and everything else from that year. So yeah. And I paid, the amazing thing is $60.
Wow.
That's all it went for on this auction site. $60. Nobody cared about George Mason Final Four stuff. So, and he had a bunch of other stuff from 06, but none of it was Mason. So I was like, I'm not buying any of this stuff. But yeah, $60. I put in a high bid of $100 as I was sitting there being sick from chemo, and it came back that I won it. $60. I was like, fantastic. So yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
Anyway, we should probably wrap it up. We've prattled now for nearly an hour and a half, so
that's okay.
Crazy. That's fine. Any final parting words?
It came up. I'm heading to see Hart tonight. I got tickets to see them
you
over.
should have led with that. How do you not lead with that?
Well, we had other things planned, so
all right, that's
I got
awesome.
Tickets to go see them, floor seats. So I'm excited about that, and it made me think about concerts and music. And not that I'm doing it because I'm going to follow this rule. If you were wearing the shirt of the band you're going to see, just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Don't be that guy.
Yep.
This concludes this episode of Gen X Men with Bill Rowland and Gary Dollarhite. Gen X Men is now off the air.